Let's take a look at the overall equation for cellular respiration. First, let's review that the reactants are on the left side of the arrow and the products are on the right. One of the reactants is a molecule of glucose. We already know something about glucose. We know it's a sugar, specifically a monosaccharide. What do we know about this in relation to our diet? Well, think about the food that we eat. Let's take pizza. The pizza dough is made from grains, which are plants. This contains a significant amount of starch. You see, plants store the glucose they produce through photosynthesis in the form of starch. So when we consume foods like pizza, we ingest starch. We then break this down into individual glucose molecules in our digestive system. However, glucose is not our only energy source. We also consume fats and proteins. But for this lesson, we're going to stick to following one molecule of glucose until it's completely oxidized or broken down into carbon dioxide. At the end of this series, though, I'll show you that no matter whether you're ingesting fats or proteins or other sugars, they all get broken down in a similar process to produce energy for the cell. Now, our other reactant is oxygen. This reaction would not happen without oxygen gas. It's like trying to start a car without fuel. It's just not going to work. Carbon dioxide shows as a product, but really it's a waste product. It's just something we have to get rid of. It's like that annoying friend that always overstays their welcome. You got to kick them out eventually. You already know that you breathe in oxygen gas and you exhale carbon dioxide. This reaction shows you why you must have a constant supply of oxygen and that you have this waste carbon dioxide that you have to breathe out. In order for cells to carry out cellular respiration, they must have a continuous supply of oxygen, which you supply simply by breathing. The other products we see are water and ATP. Our cells are mostly water, and many of the reactions either consume or produce water. Now we finally get to the whole point of this process, ATP, the energy currency of the cell. Now we already know from previous lessons that all cells require ATP to carry out their cellular work. This is how we can move our muscles, how we're able to send nervous signals, how we make copies of proteins in our cells or copy our DNA. If cells don't have this ATP, they can't function properly and eventually they're going to die. It's like trying to run a marathon without any energy drinks or snacks. You might make it a few miles, but sooner or later, you're going to crash and burn. So this reaction shows you how the cells in your body are actually producing that ATP that they need in order to function. Glucose molecules store energy within their chemical bonds, including the bonds between carbon atoms and the bonds between carbon and hydrogen or oxygen. But the real fun starts when glucose decides to let loose and break it down, literally. This stored potential energy is released slowly during the oxidation of these glucose bonds. The released energy is used to generate ATP molecules. This process is an example of what we call a redox reaction. One molecule is reduced while the other one is being oxidized. Reduction involves the gain of electrons. These are negatively charged. Oxidation involves the loss of electrons. Remember, chemical bonds consist of electrons, so when bonds are broken, electrons can be transferred from one molecule to another. To simplify the understanding of electron transfer in this particular equation, we can also consider the gain or loss of hydrogen atoms, because they carry electrons. Gaining a hydrogen atom would be the equivalent of gaining an electron, while losing a hydrogen atom would be equivalent to losing an electron. This is because a hydrogen atom consists of one proton and one electron. Therefore, when an atom or molecule gains a hydrogen, it simultaneously gains that electron. To determine which reactant is being oxidized and which is being reduced, we must focus on the transfer of electrons. Glucose, the only carbon-containing compound on the reactant side, is converted into carbon dioxide, the only carbon-containing compound on the product side. Glucose, we see, has 12 hydrogens, while carbon dioxide has none. That indicates a loss of hydrogens and consequently a loss of electrons. That reveals that glucose is being oxidized into carbon dioxide. On the other hand, oxygen is the other reactant, which is converted into water. Oxygen has no hydrogen atoms, while water has several, showing a gain of hydrogens, gain of electrons, and this demonstrates that oxygen is reduced into water. Remember, this process is called a redox reaction because it involves both a reduction and an oxidation simultaneously. Let's review metabolism and relate this reaction to what we've learned about energy in the cell. Is this reaction catabolic or an anabolic reaction? Right, it's catabolic because this larger molecule glucose is broken down into smaller products. Remember, that's the definition of catabolism. Is it endergonic or exergonic? Yeah, it's exergonic because we have a release of energy that's transferred to produce ATP. Now you have a basic idea of what cellular respiration means. In the next 3 videos, we will cover 3 processes of cellular respiration: glycolysis, the Krebs cycle, and the electron transport chain.